She's older, right? She should start.
That was so funny. I'm sorry.
Hello, and welcome to Sip and Tip. I'm MJ.
And I'm Zane.
Today, we are going to talk about...
Middle school children ages 9 to 14.
Yeah. Oh, fun. So, this is the age where hormones are, let's just say, interesting. Children are beside themselves, and it's all the parents' fault. So, this is the time where children really need a lot of structure, a lot of praise, and a lot of redirection.
Definitely.
I know when I was 14, you couldn't tell me anything. I knew everything. Everything. You couldn't convince me I didn't. In hindsight, I know I didn't. But in the time of me being a teenager or a preteen, I knew everything. It was, I know. Don't worry about it. I know. And so I feel like that's continued in the realm of, preteen, teenage. They always seem to know. And then when they don't do it right, they're like, well, maybe I should have listened, but they won't tell you. They won't tell you. So giving them that information in times where they're receptive to it, even though they might not use it the way you want them to or when you want them to, they'll have it in their knowledge base to actually use it when it's appropriate or deemed appropriate for them.
Yeah. And it's funny that you said that at 14 because I said it at 9. So here we go from 9 to 14 and the different generations. So yeah, at 9 I was I know. And a lot of times I did. And that was only because I was that awkward kid reading books and dictionaries and stuff. So yeah, a lot of times I knew. But I get in trouble for saying I knew. So I say that to say that if your child says I know, try to give them ways to show you that they know. Not just get upset because they said they know and you probably know that they don't know. Yeah. Just have them elaborate on it so that you can thoroughly understand what they think they know.
And I think this is a developmental milestone really for them to be able to figure out their own stuff. Yes. Like, yeah, we have so much more experience, which means we have so much more knowledge or things to reference.
Right.
But they have to gain that because the next step, they're going to be making choices more independently than they are now. Exactly. So if they're not able to draw from their experiences or draw from other people's experiences or learn how to do that at least, they're going to be harder to train later in life. So giving them that kind of power or autonomy to make choices on their own. Of course, not life or death situations, but if they're, gonna go out without brushing their teeth, because 9-year-olds do that sometimes, you'll figure it out.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things.
When your friends start telling you your breath stank or somebody don't want to talk to you because your breath stank, they'll figure it out.
Right. Or in the day and age in which we are recording this, when you put your mask on, you will definitely figure it out.
That is true too.
So it's stuff like that where they're not harming anybody.
Right.
They're inconveniencing themselves. And as parents, we want them to, look their best, do their best, be their best.
Right. And basically be a reflection of us.
Right.
And that's something that I think was instilled in us growing up. You are a reflection of me.
Right.
So if you're a reflection of me and you look like that, well, honey, I don't look like that. That's how you feel. But you also have to let that child gain their own independence. And that means they have to see what they like.
Yes.
What it is works for them, not what works for you.
And just even in the reflection of you, are you dictated to? Because you make your decisions. You're able to make your mistakes and learn from them. So why aren't your children?
That's true. And when they see that, that's what they're seeing. They're not seeing you as a child and what you had to go through as a child. They're seeing what you're doing today.
Right. And so for me, I love giving people the benefit of the doubt. So you'll tell me your thoughts and ideas, and I'm like, well, what if this happens? And I'll point out something bad that can happen. Like, you decide you don't want to go to bed on time. And, on time is relative. But you want to be up late at night. Okay, so what happens when you got to get up in the morning and you're tired? Oh, you don't have a plan for that? Maybe you should create a plan, because that's what's going to happen.
Right.
We know this.
And we know that you could possibly fall asleep in class, which is going to either get you detention or have them call home, which is going to get you in trouble. So
yeah. What's going to happen when you're on punishment because you didn't make it to school because you stayed up all night? What's going to happen when you don't have, the rights to a car because you didn't wake up for school and you're not doing what you need to do? Things like that, because it helps them problem solve.
Right.
It helps them predict or be able to plan for the future.
Right.
And that's important as adults, so that has to start somewhere.
And I've often told my children, you have to do what you're supposed to do in order to do what you want to do.
Right. But again, if they don't see the relevance in it, then they just see it as mommy saying this or daddy saying that.
And that's where consequences come in.
Right. Because that's how you teach relevance. And so for us, we kind of just know, if you don't go to bed on time, you're going to be tired in the morning. That's going to start a whole railroad of stuff for that next day. For children, they're like, oh, if I stay up late, I could talk to my friends. I'll get up in the morning and I'll just shake it off or take a shower and get energy. We know it does not work that well. They do not. This is something they have to learn, especially for, children that are more moodier when they're tired or when they get hangry. They don't understand what's happening because they're still children. They're still young. They think they know. They're like, oh, I'm just upset.
Right.
There's a reason for it. They might not be able to tap into that reason, but talking through all of this will help them identify that. And that will give them purpose for the reasons that they do things. And that's important.
Yeah. You definitely have to understand the reason behind things that they do. They need to see the importance of their choices and what comes after their choices.
Yes. And same thing with things that they don't readily choose. So there's some things that are non-negotiables in families. So, for instance, doing chores. You have to do chores. Right. At the end of the day, when you're grown and you're an adult, they're not called chores. It's called life responsibility.
Right. Keeping your house clean.
Right.
To do.
And so even at the tender age of 9, 13, you can have that conversation with children. Like when you get your own apartment or you own your own home, whatever the case may be, what do you think is going to happen if you let the dishes pile up? If you don't sweep and mop the floor, if you don't do your laundry, if you don't do these things that you are saying mom or dad is nagging you about, what's going to happen? And most of them are going to just be like, well, I'll get to it. Okay. If you have the bandwidth, allow them to let that stack up. Maybe not in the kitchen because you all have to share a kitchen unless you have 2 kitchens. But allow it to stack up. And then tell them, okay, I'm going to check on you in 2 weeks for this. Mm-hmm. They're going to run out of laundry. Do not give in and buy them new things just because they didn't do laundry.
Nope.
They're going to have to face the kitchen at some point. And when they do, they're going to realize how daunting it really is to overcome that much work at once. So these are natural consequences. These are things that they can learn from. And honestly, a lot of children learn better in that way, unfortunately. It would be easier if they just took our words and ran with it, but they don't. So I love doing the whole laundry thing. You don't do your laundry, I can't help you. You need the clothes for school. You knew where the washer and dryer was. You didn't do your laundry. Well, there you go. Now you got to figure that out. But you better make it to school on time.
And it's funny because my firstborn listened more than my second.
Yeah.
Like the firstborn, she would help me in the kitchen. So there were days that if I was in too much pain or I was sick, she would be in there and she would make her own bowl of cereal, or she would pop toaster strudels in the toaster, whatever. But not my son. My son will sit in his room and wait. He will probably grab a fruit cup. If I have Lunchables for him, he might get Lunchables. But that boy, if your child is like mine, is watching YouTube, and when I tell you they're just watching somebody else play a game, it's ridiculous. They will stay there for hours all day if you let them. But we can't let them. And I have a really bad habit of letting him sometimes. But we can't always let him.
I know from my teenagers, they'll do stuff like they'll make chicken nuggets or cookies or something in the oven.
Mm-hmm.
They'll take their stuff out, they'll leave the pan on top of the stove and the oven on.
Oh. Yeah, that's it.
So in my house, when you leave the oven on, the lights on, the water running, and you're not using these things, you're taxed.
Okay.
That means your allowance, if you're working, whatever, it goes into a jar, and you have to pay your tax because you're running up bills uselessly.
That's good. That's
so
a very good technique.
Yeah, so you have to pay, and of course, depending upon their allowance or how much they're getting for work, and how old they are, their tax is different. So for like a 9-year-old, if they're getting allowance, maybe their tax is 50 cents each time they do it.
Right.
Or $1, or whatever.
Right.
They'll learn to turn these things off when they're not using them. It's one thing if they're running out the room for a quick minute and coming back, but if I come into the kitchen a half an hour after you left and the oven's on and the light's on and the pantry light is on, that's a problem. That's 3 things you could have turned off because bills rack up.
That's right.
And so for me, I sit down and talk to the children about bills. They don't have to pay them, but they have to understand that every month there's a bill that comes in for water, maybe every quarter, whatever the case may be, that we sit down and we talk about the bills.
Right.
And we break down how much each of these bills, these utilities, cost per day. And you just take whatever the bill is, divided by how many days there was in that month or quarter, whatever the bill is segmented out to be. And so we talk about how we can generate and or save each day on these bills. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Winters are hard because it's darker, and that's when your bills go higher, especially for electricity
and heat.
Yeah. But again, it's a teaching moment.
Right.
And so although they're not paying the bills, they're conscious of what's coming into the house in terms of bills and how we are directly affecting the bills.
And they're also getting prepared to be able to pay their own bills.
Right.
Especially if you're explaining to them, say like if you show them the electric bills or if you show them how you do your budgeting, you're teaching them these things. And these skills are very important when they get on their own.
Yeah. Same thing for school shopping. Children love to go in and just pick whatever looks nice. I don't know about your children, but my children will pick things that look nice in the store, not want to try it on, and get home, and then they don't like it and it's sitting in their closet for 4 months, and then it goes in donations. So we have to stop that. Like, that's a waste of money, that's a waste of resources. If you're not willing to try the things on in the store, when you get home, you need to do a whole model show.
Exactly.
Figure out what you're going to wear, what you're not going to wear, put all the things you need to return back in the bag. Because I get it, those dressing rooms are not comfortable.
I get it.
Put them back in the bag, return them. And then do it again if you need to. And
I like fashion shows, so me and my kids, we do that. Anytime we do clothes shopping, we come home, we do this fashion show thing, so we see what fits nicely, what doesn't. And like you said, though, sometimes it doesn't go back to the store. Yeah. Sometimes we end up passing it down to a younger sibling or an other cousin or somebody because it doesn't make any sense for it to just go in the trash or, just...
But those are new things that you can use for Christmas gifts or birthday gifts or whatever have you. But again, it's not a whole waste. It's not just sitting in the closet collecting dust. Right. And then that also goes back into the autonomy. They get to choose what they're wearing, what they like, what they don't like. Obviously, if they have uniforms, can't really do much about that. But
True enough.
For regular clothing, they get to choose. Choose the sneakers they like, the fit, the color. Yeah. All those things.
Sometimes with the uniforms, they get to choose the style of uniform.
Sometimes.
I know my daughter was in uniform. They had the pleated skirts. Yeah. But some of them had the pleated skirts with the suspender.
Overall,
Yes. And then there was some that just had the skirt. So they had, nice choices for girls in the uniforms. So they got to choose better than the boys, of course.
Yeah. But same thing for underclothes. Like younger ages, they like the superhero underwear.
The Fortnites.
Yeah. Older, they like the colors or certain
fits
and
whether
allow
it's
them
fitting or peplum. They like to accentuate certain areas when they get to be their teen years.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Same thing for boys. Boxers versus briefs versus boxer briefs. I was like, really? Aren't they the same? No, they're not. I was like, all right. If you say so.
And it's funny though, because having my son now, trying to figure it out with him, I now understand the different comfortability in their draws. Like, and the fact that he is so open with me, letting me know, this makes this feel like this makes me, it's very difficult to find certain things that are comfortable for them as well. So you got to be patient with them, especially at this age, because they're entering that middle school, getting ready for high school phase. They want to find themselves.
Yeah.
And it's important to them.
Yes.
It should be important to you too.
And they need something to be comfortable. Socially, they're awkward at that age.
Yes.
In going into school or any other arena with social events, it's not comfortable.
Keep in mind, they're also doing puberty. This is the puberty phase. This is where little girls are growing their breasts and they're starting to feel their hormones or, feeling sexual or stuff. I mean, there's a lot of different things going into play in these between 9 to 14 years of age. So.
And body odor kicks in.
Oh, yes.
And so you want to educate them, hopefully before this stage, but about deodorant and the benefits of bathing every day. Not saying that they'll be on board, but just those type of things, because as children develop and as they go into different arenas, they're going to be anxious, which is going to cause them to sweat,
right?
Which is going to cause body odor, which means that people are going to notice them for things that they probably don't want to be noticed about.
I found out probably when my son was 8 that he had body odor. I never smelled him. Yeah. And then all of a sudden one day it was like, whoa, little man, go wash. Like, yeah.
And not all deodorant is made equal.
Not at all.
Some deodorant will work for some. Some need other types of deodorant. So work with your child. Figure out what works for them.
Definitely. And be mindful of how you were as a child as well. Because growing up, whether you liked to bathe, whether you didn't like to bathe, whether you were a little faster than some of the girls your age, or whether you were that boy that was just really awkward and didn't have, the confidence to speak to girls or even males. Just be mindful of how you were, so that you don't forget that they're going through what you did too. And today's age is a lot different.
It's a lot to take in for them and us as parents.
Especially today. I mean, COVID got us all in the house being crazy as it is. And then the dangers outside. On top of that, you just be mindful.
Yeah. Keep
praying and just be there with your children. Make sure you're listening as well as teaching.
Right. And with that, we'll leave you with all this information for all these young children.
Yes.
Peace, love, and happiness.
Like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Till next time.